Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Blunt Force Healing Podcast, episode 263. Let me rephrase that this blog and podcast got created exactly 263 days ago. So every day I am writing and every day I'm recording the podcast. Not every day was covered with video. Video episodes started coming out regularly about 35 days ago. So we are on, I think, 41st video episode. But the podcast and the blog are having exactly 263 episodes, including this one. So if you like journaling and you want to get updates every day, although not all of them will be exciting, and as you know, life is not always exciting, so I might have difficulty to deliver fireworks every day or even, every second day, but I'll try hard to please you with a little bit of daily life. I just want to be as genuine as possible, and I always do my best to give you everything about what happened, what my thoughts were about different topics, and uh, provide a little bit of tips in different areas of life where you might be able to use them yourself and get some value out of it. So, today I was hoping to get the episode recorded in the morning, but life happens and it didn't happen in the morning. I had a little bit of work to catch up with, but regardless of that, I decided to um, accompany my wife to Murvach Beach today because she went there for a short run. Well, not so short, it was 5 kilometers. And I decided that if she's going only to do that run and will come back, I'm not losing a lot from that day, and I will just basically do early lunch break. And that's what we did. We did asynchronous run, meaning basically it's a fancy name for she ran her pace and started a little bit earlier than me, and then I did mine. And a little bit of different style. I'll tell you a little bit more about it because I think it's worth mentioning, especially for those of you that might want to start running or kind of implement a little bit of running or jogging in your life. It's not about speed, it's not about beating records or being a professional runner or something like that. It's more about exercise and making sure that you are healthy. And remember that that little pump inside and the brain are kind of two core elements of our body that I would say are responsible to keep everything else going because, brain is more like a computer for us. I know it's cliche and slightly, I would say, basic description of that, but it is. It not only makes sure that all the processes are properly calibrated within our body, but also help us think and make those conscious things like this podcast, for example. So, me speaking to you in a language that can be understood by most of you, I hope, because it's not my native language. But regardless, everyone who understands English can understand this language. While animals can communicate in their own ways, as far as we know, language is very specific to human beings. So that brain area in our heads not only allows us to communicate, but understand and consider different concepts, do research, something that is not happening anywhere else in animal kingdom. And then obviously that thing is supported by the blood flow and the whole complex system of delivery, which that little pump does. And it's very important because without it, our life ends. And if you just stop for a moment and really think about that, because we hear that every day, probably, or every other day since we are born, or we understand what people are thinking, oh, heart is important, but until we sit down or stop for a moment and think about it, if it stops, we stop. There's nothing else, unless somebody resuscitates us or revives us in a short period of time, so we don't get any damage out of that, and we can survive. Then obviously we come back alive. But if it stops, it's the end, and we have short span on this world to appreciate nature and everything that the world gives us and what we can achieve. So yeah, I diverged a little bit from the topic, but let's come back to the point of running. While walking is very important every day, from time to time running or any type of more strenuous cardio is important for you. So if you choose to do cycling or running or any type of sport that is a little bit more dynamic and requires more pace for your heart than just walking, then you're doing it right. And obviously, like everything, you can do too much of everything, and even exercise can be done in, I would say, extensive manner, and you can do too much exercise, but shouldn't be worried probably about it unless you're a sports person or do something very irresponsible, like not sleeping a couple of nights in a row, not getting proper nutrition or hydration, and suddenly go into the full sun, very heated environment and start sprinting. That might be lethal. But if any of you would like to get to running or jogging, I'd like to share with you a little insight and thought about my recent addition to jogging. And I'm not a professional runner, I'm not even amateur runner from that perspective, because, amateur means that somebody is very interested in and does it regularly. And, run is not something that I do regularly, albeit recently I started doing it more frequently. And I can see the difference in how I feel, how much better I become in running, even though I'm not focusing or even planning to improve. Like, I'm not researching and trying different techniques. I just basically decide to implement run from time to time, let's say once a week or maybe 2 times a week, and my pace naturally started to improve, which is interesting in itself. But today I did probably fourth or fifth barefoot run in, I would say, recent couple of months. So I decided to, from time to time, go to the beach. And of course, not everyone has a beach close to them, but if you have any, I would say, extensive sandy patch or strand, be it close to the lake, or you have the actual beach close by, or maybe riverbank is sandy and long enough even to do 500 to, I would say, 500 meters to 1 kilometer, and you can just jog forth and back. That's still good, because, and even if it's not available for you, but you have some other areas like the, I would say, forest trail that is more sandy, or things like that. If it isn't, then there is an option where you can buy the special shoes that are just to protect your feet. It's very similar to what surfers use, or the people that are bathing in the sea or in the ocean, to protect their feet from, for example, urchins, like very spiky animals, or things lying on the floor, on the bed floor. bed floor, or floor, or on the seabed, or let's say, or the riverbed, or the bottom of the lake. These shoes are fine for swimming, but they are not necessarily good for running. But there is actually a company and some copycats of that company as well, which created barefoot running shoes, which are very similar to that of the surfers, but the soles or the rubber of the soles is more sturdy and it's created specifically for that reason. So you feel like you're barefoot running, but you have your feet soles protected from potential glass or spiky things or something that could hurt you. So that's an option for those of you who might not have a seaside close by, or the strand with the sand. And what barefoot running is good about is, first of all, most of these shoes that are created for barefoot running, they are of the natural shape of the leg, or sorry, foot. So foot should be shaped like, if you look from the top at your feet, most of us have feet that are created almost like a funnel, and they should be like funnel. So the toes should kind of spread outside, not like this. And the problem is that for ages, decades, probably centuries, for some reason, people created and were making shoes that were of this shape. So what they were doing, they were squeezing our fingers, or actually fingers from the foot, which is in English our toes. So they were squeezing our toes, causing a lot of damage, a lot of illnesses, I would say, acute conditions like, I don't remember how you call it in English, but basically the big toe of your foot is to the inside of the foot, and that little kind of bone, well, not so little, probably the biggest bone in your top part of the foot is kind of going a little bit outside, because the toe is squeezed from the top by the shape of the shoes. It pushes those bones to the outside of the foot, and it's not rare. It's very common condition, unfortunately, because 90% or 95% or maybe even more of that companies that produce footwear, they do it wrong, unfortunately, and nobody is changing it on the wider scale, so we will still have those problems for quite a while. But there are many companies, and there is more and more every year or every decade. They come with, I would say, new, better shaped shoes, and there are actual shoes that are closer to that shape that is, well, maybe not like a bloody foot of a duck or some other water animal, but it's a little bit in the shape of the foot, so it's a bit wider. It might not look nice initially if you got used over years, since you were kind of born, you saw the shoes being this way or this way, rather than kind of a little bit wider at the top. But these shoes are natural shaped shoes, so your toes feel space, they can expand, they can normally operate. And research of the recent years and decades shows that feet have so much importance in communicating the sensory and stabilization kind of efforts towards the brain and the rest of the body, that we are still learning how important feet are and how much of our energy levels and overall feel and mood depends on feet. So I'd say that investing in good shoes is a good idea. And you can find, there's a company called, I think, Five Fingers. that started doing shoes that are actually have top cut in, so every individual finger actually goes like a glove into them, and they have rubber soles, so you actually feel almost like you have no shoes and you're going barefoot, but still have that protection, and they are very comfortable as people use them. So you might look into that, and this might help you to do running in the areas where it's a bit more dangerous to run and maybe accidentally cut or harm your feet. And if you are like me, that you are close enough and lucky enough to have the seashore or the shore of the ocean close by, then try running barefoot on the sand. There are a couple of challenges there because there are different areas. The sand might be a bit harder, and it's easy to run on it, but there are patches or areas where the sand becomes loose and soft, and this is where the challenge starts, and it's quite hard. If you try that, you can see the difference. It's almost like running uphill or walking uphill, and I found out that it's very interesting to change that, those areas while you're running, because there are different challenges, and they help you develop a lot of different elements of proper running, and your heart gets a little challenge from time to time to pump a little bit stronger, which also increase the better health of your muscle, which the heart is. And other challenges that I found today, when I was running closer to the shore and it was a low tide, there was a lot of little shells alongside the shore, and obviously they might hurt your feet, but I tried to run fairly carefully, and it wasn't super pleasant, but that gives you another challenging environment to test yourself. Then I tried the shallow water, which is another different style or different experience of running. And there is another one, the last one probably, that's the most challenging and difficult, is when the waves are very small, so the sea is or ocean is very calm. When the tide comes or goes, it creates almost like the griddle at the bottom of the sea, and when it goes away, it stays like that. So it's a hard sand, but it's like a griddle. It has a little hard waves, and when you run on that, not only it might hurt your legs, but if that griddles are a little bit bigger, you have even danger of twisting your ankle a little bit. So you need to be very careful and conscious how you're putting your feet when you run. So all of these different surfaces I compare to when people try to run in a mixed environment, like the trail runs, when they run a little bit on the grass, a little bit on the sand, a little bit on the, I would say, muddy areas, then asphalt or the concrete surface, and other types of surfaces to improve and get a different feel of the surfaces when they run, which is very beneficial in running. Anyway, so I tested all of those surfaces today with my barefoot running, and what's interesting that I saw was, without consciously focusing on pace, I just wanted to keep momentum fairly stable. When I was running on the loose sand, I could see the pace decrease naturally, and that was fine. I knew that it's harder to run on the loose and soft sand, so it slows you down, so that was natural. But what I've experienced and spotted while running on that shells that were supposed to be more difficult to run and slow me down, as well as water and those griddles, that I needed to be careful and slow down to not cause myself harm to my feet. I was expecting to slow down, but the pace actually increased. So I don't understand that. I will test that a couple of more times and see if that repeats itself, that pattern. Because if it does, I want to know, why is it? Is it that, I don't know, subconsciously I want to avoid it so I run faster? But there was no end in mind when I was running on it. I was just kind of running, and I decided that if I hurt myself or if it's too uncomfortable, then I will just switch to softer sand or other area that will be easier to run. So there was not like I was passing something that I couldn't avoid, and I knew that there's something at the other end, so I could speed up unconsciously, and that's why pace spiked a little bit, because the difference was quite huge. It was in 20-30 seconds per kilometer, so that's a lot, half a minute almost. So yeah, so this is the interesting thought that I wanted to share. It might be boring for most of you, but those of you who run or want to run, or maybe ran in the past and want to get back to running, and have that ability to test the different surfaces, I think it's worth trying and seeing if you might experience the same as I did, because I suspect that, while the shells are not in the forest, but if in the forest there is a different or more difficult surface, you might see if that influences your pace without you actually focusing on speeding up, because that would be cheating, right? So yeah, so that's how it went today. Other than that, the rest of the day was mostly focused on work. I just finished dinner. We did some pancakes with those famous fillings from potatoes and chorizo, which I think I already posted recipe about, but if not, I'll make sure that I do it in the next couple of days. So that's it for today. It's already 22 and a half minutes in. I appreciate you coming in, and after yesterday, I would say fiasco and short episode that I was trying to squeeze in before 10 p.m., I was thinking that this might be a bit more valuable or interesting bit of recording, and I hope it met some of your expectations. Tomorrow is Friday, so a lovely day ahead. I hope that it will be also having some interesting highlights. Then Saturday we'll probably go somewhere and explore a little bit more area. Although I think that Saturday might be our day to go to Bundoran and check with the guys in the surf shop, get some advice, and potentially buy the surfboards for Julian, and a shared surfboard for my wife and myself, so we can try and test ourselves and start learning surfing. Yeah, that's our plan. So this is Saturday, and Sunday starts with first competition match for Julian's team. So we know that the morning will be focused on football or soccer, if you wish, and the rest of Sunday will either be on the beach, or we will explore some new place in Donegal County. So stay tuned for the next couple of days. They might be interesting, and I hope to deliver some value for that. Some of you might actually be interested what my t-shirt says. Most of you probably don't, but Golub Dobrzyn is a Polish town, historical town that I come from. So you can search it on Google Maps. You will know exactly where on the map in Poland I come from. This is from some MTB marathon, which my mother participated. It's a cycling marathon, and she was given t-shirts of different size from that edition, and that's how I got it. So thank you very much again for your time. It was enjoyable 25 minutes to record for you, and I hope you enjoyed at least a little bit today. Stay tuned for the next update, and see you again tomorrow.